This morning we are going to take you on a rather extensive walking tour in Buenos Aires, and we're starting out on the Florida Mall, and we discover that it's a little nippy down here. We're visiting in the month of July, which is a cool time of year for Buenos Aires. It's not real cold, but it's cool enough for us to be considering some leather purchases. And certainly this city is a place to buy leather. Custom tailored.
Exactly.
The original style is this.
Great. And what's the price, typical price for a leather jacket?
For example, you can find 320 pesos.
$75 US.
Almost.
Okay. Just at the end of the Florida Mall, you come across a beautiful park in the heart of town called the Plaza San Martin. During the 19th century, this was a fort and was converted in the early 20th century into that beautiful park. And on one side of the park, you have the Peace Palace, which houses, ironically, the military circle. It's modeled on French architecture similar to the Louvre in Paris. Avenida Santa Fe is one of the major streets of town, and we are now going to be crossing the widest boulevard in the world, 9th of July Avenue. And yet there's a curious thing about 9th of July Avenue. It's really three streets all parallel to each other, forming this grand boulevard. And each of the three streets has its own name. So in a sense, the 9th of July Avenue is not really 150 yards wide the way it might seem, because of the two parallel streets that are flanking it. We've got Lima and we've got Pellegrini, and then in the middle, the 9th of July. It's got this grand obelisk in the center of it on the intersection with Avenida Corrientes. The obelisk is the most famous landmark of Buenos Aires. It was built in 1936 to commemorate the initial founding of Buenos Aires, which was in 1536. Although actually the city of Buenos Aires was officially founded in 1580. It was amusing to see this group of young college students hanging outside on the 9th of July between exams. We're bringing you into a very upscale part of town. It's called the Recoleta. Fancy shops all the way here. This is real high-class neighborhood. The Recoleta is a select area of Buenos Aires. It's terribly expensive to live here. The Recoleta is the most sophisticated neighborhood in Buenos Aires. There's several blocks with very upscale restaurants. There are a lot of embassies situated here and many upscale boutiques, very expensive places to live, fancy hotels. The Alvear Palace Hotel is one of the grandest of the five-star deluxe hotels in Buenos Aires. It's right on Alvear Avenue in the heart of the Recoleta district. The area is called the Recoleta because here there was an old convent of the Recoletos, of the Recoleta order. And one of the main tourist attractions in Buenos Aires is a cemetery. It's the Recoleta Cemetery. Eva Perón is buried here and many other of the distinguished notables of the city. So there's some great mini architecture inside. Here's some kids waiting outside the Fine Arts Museum, which never opened that day. So we continue passing the Hyatt Hotel in the Recoleta. This is in a 1932 French-style palace. We're taking you along a beautiful street called Callao. It's one of those main streets in the heart of town, a street that's often overlooked by tourists, but it's really worth walking along. Callao is a slightly curved street that is perpendicular to Santa Fe and Lavalle. And along the way, we come across this phenomenon of a bunch of dogs all tethered together. They're waiting. What could they be waiting for, you wonder? All these dogs sitting there on the sidewalk together. You'll see a lot of this in Buenos Aires. We'll get back to that in a minute. As we continue, we see where the dogs are heading. It's a large park. It's a bark park. They all get together here and spend the time. These dogs are urban dogs. They live inside apartments in the city, and there's not a lot of places to walk them except the streets, the sidewalks, and these pocket parks. So they have special fenced-off areas just for the dogs. And there are professional dog sitters who are taking care of a whole bunch of dogs at once for the busy owners. Oh, the great chance for the dogs to play with each other, behaving nicely, tussling around, working off some energy. Then they'll be ready to go back home to their urban high-rise apartment. It's a great shot for the cameras. We relax in the park a little bit in the midst of our walking tour. Nice to be able to sit down and enjoy the natural scenery here with these beautiful trees. While walking along Callao, you'll be tempted to have a peek down some of the side streets like Cordoba, one of the major avenues of the city. And here we peeked inside La Chacra restaurant, a typical Parrilla, where they just grill the beef. They have open wood fires. There's pork and all sorts of wonderful meat here. This is typical of Argentina and the specialty restaurants, and La Chacra is one of those real famous places. But then nearby we found a different kind of restaurant. Here we found a vegetarian restaurant, surprising in this meat-eating city, and another natural restaurant nearby. Here's another bunch of dogs waiting, and here's the dog walkers. These are professional dog walkers who take care of maybe 8 or 10 or 12 dogs at once. And very often, this dog walker is the same person who sold the dog as a puppy to the owner and takes care of the dog all throughout the life of the dog. These dogs are patiently waiting for the walker to come down with yet another one of their friends so they can all be walking along together. You'll see a lot of this grand architecture. This is the Colón Theater. It's the main opera house in town. Continuing along 9th of July Avenue now. It's a very busy street. Widest street in the world. Notice this fellow in the middle of the street holding up a big poster. They'll advertise any which way they can. There's always something to look at when you're walking on these great urban streets. Here's a major bookstore, magazine racks on the sidewalk. Buenos Aires is a very literate city. They have a very high level of education and literacy here. So people love their bookstores. You'll find them tucked away in many places in this city, packed with books, mostly in Spanish, of course, but you might find a few English books if you look hard and ask. Continuing along Callao Street, we will be making our way to the Congress, the great Congress of Argentina. Congress, or Palacio del Congreso, was built in 1906 and somewhat modeled after the U.S. Capitol building in a Greco-Roman neoclassical style. It has a rather elongated dome vertically stretching up into the sky 250 feet high. It's made with 30,000 tons of copper. In front of the Congress building is the beautiful Plaza del Congreso with a pond and a huge series of fountains and statues, various sculptures representing the Rio de la Plata and the Plaza of the Two Congresses, which were very instrumental in founding the country. How's that for a very strange paint job on an old bus? Buenos Aires has a metro system that's the oldest metro in South America. It's the oldest metro in the Southern Hemisphere, and it's the first metro for any Spanish-speaking country. Quite remarkable. It was built from 1913, and currently it has 6 different lines. They're all interconnected, labeled A, B, C, D, E, and H. And there's also a light rail line on the surface, and there are commuter trains that come in from the suburbs. The daily ridership of the metro is nearly 2 million people. So it's a very popular and important system. With such a big city, you really do need to have a metro system to keep the city moving. It's the only metro system in Argentina. You notice our Hawaii travelers enjoying the ride on the metro. With our tours, we always try and travel as the locals do whenever possible. And it's especially fun here on the oldest subway line in South America. We get out right at the Florida Mall and walk into a political demonstration. Turns out it was a rally for one of the major political parties in Buenos Aires. They're called PRO. And then there was a competing rally by an association of pharmacists with these flags, these orange flags. And they had their own set of drummers to help things along. There's a lot of political action on the streets here in Buenos Aires, especially around the time of an election. Well, that PRO party actually controls the city legislature, their city council. The official name is the Republican Proposal, and they're a conservative party. They're on the center right. In Argentina, there's been a whole range of different political parties shifting from the far left to the far right. It's a very healthy political system they've got going here, a very active kind of democracy. And the mall is just bustling with all sorts of other activities today. There is a tango singer performing, so let's give a listen for a minute to this soulful singer.
La vez que quise ser bueno, en la cara se me rieron. Cuando grité una injusticia, la fuerza me hizo callar. La experiencia fue mi amante, el desengaño mi amigo.
You'll find street singers out here almost any time of the day and into the evening. Sometimes there'll be a tango dancer, or a magician, or some card sharks. Watch out for the 3-card Monte. Those guys are always out there, ready to swindle you out of a little bit of money. Or just relax and enjoy the music. Florida Mall is a great place to observe the people of Argentina. It is the most concentrated mass of local folk in the entire country. And these are not tourists, as you can tell. These are local workers, out for a stroll, out for lunch. The most upscale mall in downtown Buenos Aires is Gallerias Pacifica. It's in a grand Beaux-Arts building that was first constructed in 1889. And in 1991, it was converted to this beautiful upscale galleria. They've got an excellent food court in the lower level. You'll be amazed at the high quality of food that you can get here. This is not your normal fast food kind of cuisine. This is really great food. They cook it right on the spot. You have a variety: Italian, Argentine, Chinese. You've got your pastries and desserts, as well as some really healthy foods here, all set in this fine galleria with some real upscale shops. And there are some important artworks inside. You can even take a guided tour. They have a 20-minute MP3 audio tour that is free, that you can walk around inside the galleria to appreciate the architecture. But notice the way they cook this food right on the spot. A hot flaming wok, and it goes right to the counter, right to the customer. Hot and delicious. We segue out from the flames of the fire to the flames of the tango. We'll take a look at the tango of Argentina. In future episodes, we'll have a lot more tango for you.